Test 1, 2, 3. Microphone is hot. Give me a sound check, Ken.
Sound checking. Checking the sound.
And oops, I still had the intro video going on. Let's try that again.
Checking sound. Sound check. Check.
Steve?
Sound check.
All right. We are operational. Stand by. Atomic batteries to power. Turbines to speed. And I have a desktop jet engine. This is never getting old. I'm just going to sit here and make vroom vroom noises.
Rob Altus asked an interesting question you might like to answer.
What's that?
He says, I recently flew to Taiwan and often wonder how pilots fly for 14 hours at a time.
Relief crews. A flight over 9 hours has to have a second crew. IRPs, International Relief Pilots. That is required by every country. Okay.
There you go. Mystery solved.
Yep. And depending on the length of the tour, sometimes they just do a 4-hour stint, but they're very... Usually, one of the dangers behind being an international relief pilot is that, and it's all, of course, seniority based, is you basically babysit the airplane mid-flight, And every 3 months, so sometimes they have to send these guys back to the sim because they don't have any landings or takeoffs. That's the danger of being the
They don't
IRP.
land or take the plane off.
No, they just babysit
and the
no.
crew that took it off lands it.
They go up, fly for 4 or 5 hours, then the relief crew comes up, whatever the schedule is, and they sit in there for 6, 7, 8 hours, and the regular crew comes up, and that's it. My LED Starlight, a poo-poo suit strapped in an Aces 2 ejector. Yeah. I talked to some fighter guys who've had to ferry their aircraft across the ocean. Of course, they have to hit the tanker on the way. And in days of yore, they would usually go with a bomber or a transport plane that would do all the heavy navigation, but not all. That's why you had that B-17 down there with that Greenland group. That was a nightmare mission. But of course, as aviation got more sophisticated, the fighters started going over on their own. The Russians sometimes sent the P-39s across Alaska, and they just accepted a certain percentage of loss as part of the deal. Probably less than they would have lost to U-boats or something. So it was no, they actually have a little bedroom up there for the relief crew, and it's nothing. I mean, it's basically a closet with 2 racks in it, but it meets the requirement. Delta got in trouble some years ago. I remember when this happened. An MD-11, not a DC-10, MD-11 was the crew was supposed to go from Atlanta, I think, to Tokyo, and somewhere around the West Coast was when they were supposed to start their relief, their rest period. Well, Delta had realized that they pulled out the little bedroom and moved the wall, they could get an extra row of seats in. So they literally. And the way this was described, I never saw it personally, but this is the way it was described. They literally strapped a fold-up bunk to the bulkhead in front of the first row of passengers. So the pilot would go in front of the first row of passengers, drop the little bunk down, lay down, and pull a little curtain and try to sleep while everybody's back there yakking and partying and drinking and whatnot.
Oh, God.
And aside from being slightly humiliating, the guys were like, we're not getting good quality rest, and Delta's attitude was, this is a business. This saves us and makes us more money. Shut up, you insignificant cog. So one of the captains was trying to get some sleep, and the people in front of him were talking. And I mean, they're passengers. You can't tell them to be quiet. And they paid $6,000 for that ticket. So the captain decided didn't get quality rest, which, by the way, was perfectly within his rights. So they diverted, I think, to Seattle. And, man, they wanted to fire him and everything. And the FAA was like, yeah, I don't think so. Crew fatigue, rest issues, very serious. And then I think Delta, he just did that so we put the little bedroom back in there. I think the Fed's attitude was, well, then put the little bedroom back in there, because if they're not getting quality rest, then it doesn't count. Are you saying you want to proceed with unsafe actions? And I think they got their little bedroom back. Now, you read these articles in like Alpha Magazine, but then you never get the follow up 6 months later. What came of it? I imagine they tried to take a job action on him, but I'm pretty sure that didn't fly. Pardon the pun.
Yeah, I would think, didn't they belong to that?
Yeah. But
did they stick the restrooms back in the tail cone?
What?
Didn't they stick the place to sleep?
No, absolutely not. No. After post 9/11, oh no, those guys don't come out of the cockpit, except for the when they set up the little barrier reef there and let them hit the can. No, it's right in the back of the cockpit. And,
wow.
Now, mind you, this is on wide body, so you have a little bit of room, but. I was on a 747 and been a couple others, and it's literally just a little door you put up, and there's 2 bunks in there. It is nothing majestic. It is not the Taj Mahal. It's just a place where you're able to lay horizontal and try to snore. You don't disrobe or anything like that. It's not a bedroom. It's just a couple of bunks. At least I hope you don't disrobe. I don't want to know what goes on in the crew bunks stays in the crew bunks. But
is there a curtain that they pull?
Or they got a little door.
It just open to the cockpit?
It just opens to the cockpit. And it's a little cardboard door. But it's just something to keep it dark in there so they can sleep. Try to sleep. And I am telling you right now, is anyone... And Steve, you've gone over...
Before they take over.
What?
What does the relief crew do while they're waiting to take over?
They have jump seats. They have first class jump seats. Well, ironically, when I went down to New Zealand, it was just before 9/11. So they were in a couple of first class. The jump seat was a first class seat up in the cockpit. It's very different than the little domestic stuff you're used to. And so I basically rode in a first class seat in the cockpit the whole way of a 747 United 747-400. They were back in first class, or they actually have another kind of Pacific class or something, which is like the big recliners before lay flat seats were common. But they get a couple of first class seats and they just relax, and then they come up and fly. And then I remember and they get to use the nap room also because they get tired too. But they have a schedule they rotate through on. And the relief pilot I remember he was a brigadier general in the Air Force Reserves, and I think he was the relief pilot. But I actually wasn't up in the cockpit for the whole flight because they had a United dispatcher, and dispatchers are allowed to ride in the jump seat, and she'd never, ridden in the cockpit. So what they did was they had me sit in her seat, which was a coach seat. And by the way, International Coach United blows. It was as bad as any economy seat I'd ever been in. You're going to be in that plane for 12 hours going to New Zealand out of L.A. And then she got to see the takeoff, and then about an hour later she came down, and I went back up in the cockpit, but then I came back down so she could watch the landing. But they did swap out the crews up there, and I tell you what, and Steve, you've gone over the pond a bunch of times. I don't even if you're a nice first class seat, you don't sleep well on an airplane.
Oh, I do.
Really?
Oh, I can sleep as soon as the door is closed. I'm out.
Okay. Because
I can sleep better in a plane than I can in a bed.
Yeah.
You probably got more time in a plane than you do.
Well, that's actually that's a good skill set because of course most of the times I'm trying to sleep in a coach seat or in a C-130 or C-141 sitting sideways on a canvas seat, a nylon seat. So you got 100 and 200 GIs in the back of the airplane, all half unconscious, slobbering on top of each other, shoulder to shoulder. Good times. And so as you guys know, we had my final retirement party last night, the official retirement party, and everybody came over, had a grand old time, and Steve couldn't make it, so he phoned in. So all the usual suspects got around and just yacked for about a couple hours till almost midnight, and then we all kind of drifted out. And I'll be eating leftover Sundays for 3 days, which is okay by me.
It's a lot of work.
And cake.
Cannoli cake. So, one of the things I got was this here cool jet engine.
I see it running down there in the corner.
Yeah, I'm going full throttle. Oh, that is not getting old. Anytime I've just missed my jet, I'll just play with this thing. Okay, I should not have moved my hand like that when I said that.
They need to make this an educational moment and explain to everybody how a jet engine works.
Oh, it's very simple. You go right through the chompers to get to the Omega 13.
Yeah, not everybody's going to get that one.
Ken, I think they all know how it works, but if you don't know, the air goes in, he gets sucked in here, gets squeezed by these, it gets blown up by this, and blown out the back. Suck, squeeze, bang, suck. Well, a jet, in a piston, it's suck, squeeze, bang, and blow. In a jet, it's suck, squeeze, burn, and blow. Because it doesn't go bang, it's a constant flame. And there's your burner cans right there, which are canannular, this circular donut that the flame pattern is in. And the flame pattern is never supposed to touch the metal. It's in stasis. So,
if it touches the metal, it starts burning.
Then you're going to have all kinds of problems. Now today we happen to have a second camera set up so I can demonstrate some stuff. And first thing we're going to do, let's see, is everybody on board? Oh, we got 121 watching. And Chris is here. So Chris, stick your fingers in the bowl. Well, it's 3D printed. I don't want to break anything. But it's time to see what Chris brought us. Sit me. And, oops, I got it right here. And no, I have not peeked ahead. Alrighty. So, this is the stop sign. Mac stop. I want everyone to see it the same time you see it. It'll be cool. Alright, and there's another note under this. I went to a couple of toy fairs recently. I always find great deals. I was thinking about you, so I found some things I thought you would like. Make a show of it. Let everybody see Chris. This is from our friend Chris in Sylvania, Ohio. All right. First item is, haha. Oh, wow. The Johan. Oops, I got to turn that other camera on. Okay, hold on. Turn the other camera on. Okay, here we go. It's the Johan Zero and Roof Kit. And I think Johan, if I remember when I made the video on them, I believe those were Heller kits originally. And
he got them from Kohl's.
So, I got these at Toy Fair recently. So, Kohl's. Who remember? Well, we still have Kohl's. And let's see. Next up, open kit, inventory complete. Do a review of the kit. Okay. Okay. This is the E-82 Dave float reconnaissance plane. And I got to tell you something about this airplane. When I did my big 8-part air operations of the Battle Midway video, I could not find a copy of a model of an E8N that I could afford. So I kit bashed a Stearman. And now I finally have an E8N, which means I can do it properly, build it proper. And important little float plane. This was a pre-war design that the Japanese used throughout the entire war. And I know it's a biplane and everything, but it was a very good airplane. And
Chris says they are brand new.
Yeah. Okay, refrigerator magnets. Let me see. Oh! Hold on. Yeah, you guys are going to like this. This is a refrigerator magnet, all right. It's see if I can reach over there. It's a Godzilla refrigerator magnet.
Is it Godzilla sized?
Yes, Ken. It's 30 feet across. It's a Godzilla refrigerator. That is awesome. Okay. Okay, this says, open last, open carefully, up. Okay, I'll set that aside for right now. All right. We have, let's see, open kit, inventory complete, do a kit review. All right, we'll go over this. This is the AZ model Wildcat in or I should say Martlet, because it appears to be in British markings. Okay, let's open this up. All right, we have, actually I was thinking about getting one of these because I don't have any Japanese armor. We have the Chiha, the Atlantis Chiha Japanese tank. And I actually seriously was considering about getting some Japanese armor because I realized I didn't have any. Now, make sure that empties the box. So, let's open last, open carefully. Okay. Let me get see if I can just get my knife right here. Give that a little slit. Give this side a little slit.
My kids call them kniffies.
Well, I was told the ruler. Max, this is a page from a comic book ad from 1964. Not sure what comic. Get it framed, enjoy Chris. Vintage 1964. There we go. And it, of course, is the ad for the Aurora Monsters. All right, I actually think I might have a frame in the shed. It's a little big for that, but it'll work in the meantime till I can get something proper sized. And that's a real one. That's not a reprint or anything. That's the real.
That's pretty cool.
That's excellent. Thank you, Chris. That's I'm not going to take it out of the plastic or anything. It's got a hard backing on it. And when I stayed at my buddy Jim Ledbetter's house, I had to go to sleep with all these things staring down at me from his shelf. Yeah, when you're 10 years old, there's some nightmare fuel. But now I'm a grown man. It doesn't bother me. It doesn't bother me at all. Now let's review these 2 kits he wanted to review. Alrighty. You know what? Let me turn the lights up a little bit. And whoa, okay. And you know what? I think I'm going to lower the. I'm going to move over here and lower the camera just a bit so you guys can see a little better. It's just we're a one-man shoe here. There we go. And I got this Rube Goldberg set up over here.
Is this the big reveal?
Well, he said he wanted to review the kits, so we're going to review them. And here's a better look at the refrigerator magnet. That is cool. You know what the weird part is, though? I'll find a place to put it. Maybe on the door of the Tarbis, because, believe it or not, our refrigerator is not magnetic. We can't put refrigerator magnets on it. But I'll find a nice place for it. Heck, right now, it's just going to go up here on my Godzilla shelf with the rest of them.
Is it stainless steel?
Something like that, yeah. Whew, getting warm in here. Must be all that whiskey. Gonna turn the fan on. Okay, so let's start. Oops, bump into everything. Ah, Max, you're beautifully clumsy. And by that, I just mean you're clumsy. Okay, let's start off with the AZ model. And again, the knife. Oh, look at that! They give you a nice 3D, you know. Let me expand this a little bit. Make it a little bit easier for you guys to make out what we're doing here. Okay. So they've got 3 different British markings for it. I didn't know the British had them in bare metal or gray. All right, let's just do a little slit here, and we shall review these kits. Dun, 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 dun. Okay, first thing, instruction sheet. And we have a 7-panel and 8 pan. Okay, gotta turn the fan off. There is our parts trees, and looks like a pretty straightforward model. And we have the firewall, and I guess that's supposed to be an engine firewall and a cockpit firewall, landing gear firewall. The engine goes in separately. Okay, so that's the firewall, and that's the front of the cockpit. 1, 2, 3, 4. It's got some detail. 1/72 scale kit. Instrument panel. So pre-paint this. And if you're going to make it wheels down, you know, Grumman's have that complex landing gear, so you have a few parts you got to put together. No getting around that. And what's this up here?
I was kind of curious. I've seen quite a few aircraft, I guess they're Grumman's, that pull the wheels up into the fuselage.
Yeah, that goes back to when they were biplanes. Because the biplanes, you couldn't put the wheels on the wings, and they just stayed with what they knew. Because this airplane, the Wildcat, is definitely a straight. You look at the early FF and F2F and F3F, it is without doubt a straight up derivative of those, a follow-on. And they didn't get rid of that system until they started working on the Hellcat. But it was a fighter competition, and Brewster also pulled them up. But they had a completely different system, and it turned out the Grumman system, although more complicated, was a lot stronger. Navy got rid of the Brewsters partly because the landing gear couldn't take carrier landings. But the other thing was the Brewster didn't have, it was like a Zero. It didn't have any self-sealing fuel tanks or armor plates, so it was actually very nimble and very fast, had an excellent roll rate and a really high dive speed. But it couldn't handle the abuse of going on the carrier, so they had to get rid of them. And they actually had a second fly off, and the updated Wildcat prototype beat it. And it had it could be because they wanted, self-sealing fuel tanks. And when the Marines got it, they put a lot of armor plate and stuff on it, and that really bogged it down to the point they could hardly maneuver because they didn't have any horsepower. You got to remember how fast airplane technology was accelerating in the 30s, the late 30s. An airplane designed in 36 was completely obsolete by 38. One designed in 38 was usually obsolete by 40, 41. It was just happening so fast.
Except for the Lightning, it seemed to have.
Well, the early Lightnings had their issues. They had a lot of that airplane was constantly improved. And plus, you had two big old, Allisons out there. So, yeah.
The airframe, even though the airframe survived throughout the entire war, granted, constantly improved, but it's basically the same airframe.
Basically, I mean, you once you learn the P-38, you learn the differences pretty quick. But yeah, we have French, Royal Air Force, and Greek Air Force, and the French one is the one with the red ones with the anchors in them. Of course, British and blue and whites, which like Argentine are actually Greek. The Greek Air Force had, or the Greeks had them, and the detail luckily looks very good. I don't know if this thing will focus or not.
No, it's still blurry.
Yeah, but
Super PZL says, "Have my eyes failed me, or is it blurry for everyone?"
No, it's blurry. But the main landing gear is one nice piece. Okay, now it's okay. Let me see. Sometimes the autofocus gums up on these little. Come on, find your focus.
Mark says, "That's why you need an assistant."
Yeah, and it's trying to. You see now it's focusing in closely. There we go. Now she's getting back into focus. So you have the one piece. I mean, there are other components to the landing gear, but it all looks pretty straightforward. It should be a nice kit. I'll probably make it wheels down. And if this comes out looking like I hope it will, then it'll go with my Wildcat that's in the house. I had the big Revell 1/32 scale one and a pre-made one that I got at like Hobby Lobby, which was sadly better than I can make it. But I would like to put that one because I want it with the wings out because the big one doesn't fit on the shelf with the wings out, so one of the wings is folded.
Herman says the Wildcat was actually made blurry. It was an effective camouflage.
Yeah. But it does have two-piece top and bottom wings. It does not appear to have the ability to mount it with the wings folded. Uh-oh. I see something that I'm not real fond of, and it doesn't surprise me from AZ Models. This looks like butt joint wings. There's no tabs or alignment pins or anything. These are straight up hard butt joints. I want to hold it close to the camera. I tell you, you know what? Well, you guys know what a butt joint is. I don't. Instead of me doing that, let me do this. I'm going to try and, oops. Hold on, watch your eyes. There. I'll use the camera trickery. But, yep, that's solid butt joint. Which means, now I could, you know what I might do? I'm just very well, because I'm getting tired of dealing with it. Well, small butt joints are one thing, but big ones are a problem. So what I very well might do is drill a couple little holes in there, put the wing there and drill through so that the holes line up and put a little pin in there, just a little metal pin or something, so that it's got some kind of alignment pin. Because something that big, I mean, there are glues you can use that'll hold, I mean, the Gorilla Glue would probably hold it really nicely. But I put a couple things with Gorilla Glue that were butt joints, like when I fixed the wheel on that Stinson, and you got to give it overnight to harden. I come back the next day and the thing had drifted. But now there ain't no moving it. So I'll probably. But the thing is, they do have alignment slots on the stabilizer. I think. Let me see. Yeah, the stabilizer and the tail fin have alignments, but the main wings don't. So. That's interesting.
Hey, butt joints, those things that plumbers are famous for.
That's butt crack.
That's butt crack, Ken. That's when you have to break out the butt crack spackle. Hold still, I'm going to slaughter some butt crack spackle in there. You're shining the moon over New York. That all came from a Saturday Night Live skit with the Norge refrigerator. It's a Norge. You know, and Gilda Radner's playing the little girl. I say it's a full moon over New York. Back when SNL was funny. Okay, what do we have here?
Craig Strain says, lowest protection costs on YouTube.
You better freaking believe it. It's worth everything you're paying for it. It does come with the separate windows. For people forget, the Wildcat has the little belly windows also. And I believe that is just so when the pilot's scan, he can see underneath him. I wonder, I might do this in like just solid light gray and make it something different, you know? Maybe make it French or... just because, I mean, I'm actually glad that this comes with something besides just U.S. markings. And it's nothing, it's just, you know, you just build these things so many times, and after a while, so there's a reason to put that Hellcat in French markings, is you just want to do something different. And, alrighty, let's slide this back in there with it. But, it's good to look this far ahead because, you know, now I know what I got when I open this thing up. I know what's ahead of me.
Super PZL says, that's it, Ken. Give Sluggo material to get him started.
Yeah, good move, Ken. Good move, Kenny. Alrighty. Now, this is from a company called Exotic that I am not familiar with. This is the E8 Into Dave float plane. And one of these old buggers, the Battle of Midway, did something significant. I forget what it was, a spot of one of our submarines or something. And just because it's an old biplane doesn't mean it ain't dangerous. You know, this thing can carry a depth charge like anything else. Okay. So, let's see what we have here. Okay, again, still bagged. So, let's see. This one's stapled closed. Alright. First thing we'll do is look at the instruction sheet. I have to look up Exotic. I see if this is a kit that was repopped by somebody else. Okay. Alright. Okay.
Max, are people falling asleep?
I'm sure they are. Hey man, we're the cure for insomnia.
I think you peaked last night, Ken.
Okay, there we go. All right, not the most complex instructions on earth. There's literally a picture of the airplane and an exploded diagram, and that's it. Although we do have some decals. Okay. Just looking at the kit. The parts look good. They're going to be needing a little sanding to get some of this stuff off the edge. I see some large gates on it. And I don't want to take these other pieces out of the bag because I don't want to risk losing any of them, but I will take the fuselage half out. Exotic. There's the pontoon. There's the fuselage half. And it actually has very fine detailing. Looks on scale, doesn't like it's overdone. So, given the small scale and the fact that it's a biplane, it's going to be a little bit tricky to build. It doesn't have much rigging, though, fortunately. It has a little bit. I don't know if I'll try to rig the cables on it or not. But if I do, I'll probably do that before I put the fuselage in, because it looks like the rigging goes right into the side of the fuselage, so I'll have to look into that. Yeah. Steve, can you do me a favor real quick? Steve?
Yeah.
Are you in front of a computer? Are you in front of your computer?
No.
Oh, Ken, you're in front of your computer, right?
What do you need to know? I'll go find out.
Well, I was going to say, if you can go to ScaleMates and see if this Johan kit is actually a reboxed. I think it's a Heller. I'm just curious about that.
All right, I'll go give it a shot if it comes.
And I think he wanted us to take a look at that. There should be two airplanes in here.
What kit is it?
This is the Johan Zero and Roof, which I want to say it was Heller. They gave them their airplanes. It's funny, Johan's famous for cars, but John Hanley started off making airplanes, models of air, winning awards making models of aircraft. And by the way, guys, quick little history note. Although the Roof float plane is very much based on the Zero, it was not a Zero. First off, they were made on contract by Nakajima, not Mitsubishi. And they actually do have quite a few structural differences because they don't have the landing gear, which let them carry more fuel. They had to have the fuselage, and the tail had to be changed to make it a float. And they had to strengthen the spar for the wing for the. So even though it is very much based on the Zero, it's not made by Mitsubishi, and it's not just a Zero with the wheels pulled off and floats pulled on. The airplanes could not be swapped back and forth. If you were a Roof, you were a Roof. If you were Zero, you were a Zero. The Roof was a straight-up float plane. It was not amphibious. And although I wouldn't trifle with one, it's still based on the Zero. But they didn't fare that well because that float obviously was a lot of drag. But it did give the Japanese fighter planes where they didn't have any runways. Although I'll tell you right now, until the American Navy showed up with some decent fighters, the Roofs were pretty much reigning supreme. All right.
Show me the box. Show me the box cover again.
It's the Zero and the Roof float plane together. And yes, the Roofs are that weird brown-orange color. I'm not exactly what color you call that. Of course, they were also gray and they were also green. But that's the color that Linwood used on his box art with the Aleutian Tiger shooting one down. And all right, let's take a look at the parts here. Okay, there's the Roof. Okay.
No results.
Well, guess what?
What?
I missed the operative word. Roof or Zero. So you only there's only one airplane in here.
It says 1973 new tool.
Okay, but is it but if you go to the history, is it a Heller kit or is it?
Let's see. Product timeline. Nope, says it was introduced in 1973. That's it.
Okay.
Oh, Chris says those orange colors were used during the Aleutian.
Yes,
campaign.
during the Aleutian campaign. That is correct. And so this gives you the parts to make either airplane. And what I do like though is that they give you the belly of the airplane set up as one as the other, so you don't have to if you want to make a roof out of it, you don't have to put the gear doors on it and patty them up. They've got that section done, but it'll let you. I wonder how many kids bought this thinking there were two airplanes in here. Because it says in one tiny little letter, Zero, Zeke, and then little tiny black or Roof. You know.
Okay, there's a Heller Mitsubishi Zero/Sen.
Well, that's just what they call it, yeah. Huh. Well, when I did the Johan video, I remembered some of their airplanes came, I want to say from Heller. I could be wrong on that. Maybe, but that doesn't mean that it's been so long since I did that video. It doesn't mean that Johan didn't make his own airplane molds. Maybe he did. Okay, now I'm curious about something, which is always a dangerous thing. Okay. Let's see. I'm going to look at kits. Yeah, they only did 10 aircraft. And Intech, that's who it was, Intech. And So this must have been, oh, it went to Intech. Oh, Intech was probably a distributor overseas, so that actually makes some kind of sense. The Johan. Where the hell? Okay. All right. I probably did not get the information from Scalemates then. I remember when I did the video talking about some of their aircraft came from another vendor because they need to get some stuff out quick and dirty, but I don't know if that was all. They only made 10 aircraft, I think, something like that. Then that's when the car sales were slipping, so they were desperately looking for another source of income. But Hanley was actually more famous for his model airplanes back before he started the company. And that's when he was really young, and he was a master modeler making stuff from scratch. And so I don't know. It's been so long. I got to go back and watch my own video. Sometimes I have to do homework myself. Oh, but well, Chris, I appreciate that very much. Let me get back over here. And so the Japanese Air Force is well represented. Or actually, she said the Japanese Navy.
Did Jays usually fly inverted?
It's a zero. Of course they did, Ken. That's how they fox the enemy.
Right before they hit the ground.
Water. Before they hit the water.
Common technique.
But I'm going to set this up right here for right now. Okay. And turn the fan off now, I think. Get my ethereal glow back in the background as I use my TWA cup to sip my bourbon. Ooh, I'm warm. Let me turn the fan on here. Atomic batteries to power, turbine to speed. This is just not getting old anytime soon. Oh, no wonder I'm hot. I'm sitting directly in the jet blast. And of course this has the spiral on the nose. Okay, who wants to know why they paint that curly spiral line on the nose of the engine, on the bullet?
So you can tell they can the plane.
You can tell the thing's turning. And yes, that is why the Germans put spirals on the noses of a lot of their Messerschmitts and Focke-Wulfs. They wanted guys with all the noise and racket on the flight line and everything. They wanted to be able to tell the props the blades were turning. Because when that blade is really going and all that racket in the background, you might walk right into a prop. It happens more than you want to think about. And I don't know exactly how effective it was, but apparently they thought it was effective enough that they continued to do it. And the airlines still do. Sometimes they just put a little teardrop on the nose. You see it spinning around. But, I would think all of the noise and racket and vibration would tip you off, but some people just don't get the hint. Ooh. Okay, I am getting warm. I'm going to turn the fan back on. Oh.
Frank said it scares away the ground crew.
Well, the words every ground crew had to hear: clear prop. And we actually had to now in the jet we would use a hand signal, but in the turboprops they would still shout clear prop, clear. And with the PT6 it wasn't so bad because it winds up slow, but a piston engine, the way they bust off. And by the way, if you guys saw the video I put out today about the party, I showed that picture of an L4 being propped off. I just got it off of Google. Turns out it belonged to a glue trooper. He rebuilt that airplane. He was like, hey, you had my airplane in there. I was like, really? Yeah, it was Mr. Sabo. And so, small world, huh? Well, Chris, I thank you very much for that. And I will get these in the queue. I'm a little believe it or not, of all the other things, I think the tank will probably go up because I was actually thinking about getting one of these, and I like these repops of old Aurora kits from Atlantis because they make nice 1 or 2 day builds. They're and they look great on the shelf. They look fine on the shelf, and it's just they're very relaxing.
Hey, Max.
Yeah.
Nathan asked an interesting question. I know the answer, but I know you'd like to answer it. Has there ever been an incident of a ground personnel getting sucked into a working jet engine?
Absolutely. It just happened recently, sadly, and it did kill the famous one in the Navy where the guy got pulled into the A6. The choke point on the A6 where it goes in the engine was so small he couldn't get in there. And they showed him on the ship's thing later with his head all bandaged up. And he did survive. But this is Mr. Sabo's L4 that he rebuilt. And I was telling you guys how to properly hand prop an airplane. You do not wrap your fingers around it. And you can see how this gentleman he's basically face palming it. That way when you pull through on the propeller, everything is clear if it fires off. So, nice work on the L4. But propping airplanes, I don't mind with the little 65s or even the 85s, but I've propped off 180 horse and 200 horse engines. That is not fun. I mean, you're talking about serious resistance and compression. You got to give it a hard pull, and you got to really turn into it. And I've seen guys that'll walk up, they'll prop it off from behind. Now, you've got 2 people here, so you got a guy on the brakes, probably got the chocks in. And a lot of guys, when they're by themselves, they'll chock the plane, but there have been times when people went out, they were by themselves, they chocked it and propped it, but maybe when they got out of the airplane, they bumped the prop or the throttle or something, because when they fired it off, it took off on them. That's happened several times. It's always nicer to prop one off when someone's in the airplane, to stand on the brakes and control the throttle. But I've seen guys walk up behind, and they'll prop them from behind, which Jack Crawford used to do that in his Taylorcraft all the time, but the man was 80 years old. He'd been doing it for 60 years. So, and he made it look so easy. He just go and lay his hand on, blup, 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 blup. With the 65, I guess it's not so horrible. But yes, people have been killed by propellers. They've walked into jet engines. I know of at least 2 fatalities in my career. Once, one was with Saab 340. I think it was at Pinnacle or Express 1. And one just happened recently with a jet. And I forget it was an Airbus. Doesn't really matter. I saw a garbage bag go through a 737 engine one time, but I think it was empty. But that was it. It went in. You didn't see anything come out. And it ain't pretty, So, let's see. We got because I was out working on the Wright Flyer today and got it mostly done. I didn't even have a chance to. Didn't get much prepared for this evening because I was out there working on it, and I looked at time just got away from me, as time's prone to do when you're building models. It's like, man, I don't feel like going out. You know what? I'm just going to go out to Arbus and drop some of this stuff off, set this award up that Trey and Fran made, and then you look at it and go, well, I'm going to do this one little thing. I'm just going to touch this one little thing up with some paint, and then 4 hours later, you're elbow deep into it. What, Ken?
I didn't say anything.
Oh. But, so, last couple hours, Steve called in. We just, he wound up joining the party via satellite. And, it's just amazingly how vividly we all remember the 70s. It's like I sometimes can't remember what am I doing today? You told me yesterday and I've already forgotten. But ask me what happened in 75. Oh yeah, that was over at the and of course model building's a fairly small world because a lot of you guys send me emails about stuff and we're like, oh yeah. I remember that. And we've been to the same shops, we've been to the same built the same kits and everything. But Steve.
Yeah?
I texted Jim Keeler. You guys know Jim Keeler, who worked for Revell Models for 10 years. I'm supposed to meet him next week down in Orlando. I need to. I sent him a text. I need to firm up what day so I can make my travel arrangements. But if you guys haven't been to Desert,
I was talking to him before you called me to go on the live stream.
Oh, okay. I know he doesn't have his hard schedule yet, but anyway, if you guys haven't been to Desertland, Steve and I went down there and did a video on it. They got a lot of cool stuff, and if I was gonna put a hobby shop, if I was gonna put a kit model store up any place, Desertland would be the place.
Well, they have a kit in the gift shop.
They have a kit in the gift shop?
No. They have a whole bunch of kits in the gift shop.
Oh, I don't think I saw that.
I know, because I sold them to him. But, let me put it this way. It's a nice place. They have great collection and everything, but their markup on the kits is a little rich, I guess. Proper words. You could do a little better someplace else.
Well, the whole idea is, gift shops are like, you're here, you just saw the stuff, here's the kit, come on, kid, you want it. And if you remember the 70s, you weren't doing it right. I remember faces. Yeah, I'm the same way. I'll recognize a face and I won't recognize the name. I'm horrible. Supposedly humans are better at optical recognition than they are at remembering names. And Max, remember our blaze with Mom 15 feet away, not seen or heard. And Rod Stewart, I remember Rod Stewart. Well, you can't forget that hair. It's sad to say that you might be a nerd if you remember you can remember what you were doing because you can remember the TV lineup, or you can remember a certain box art. Oh, I know that box art because that's when I did da. Or we all okay. The first large-scale SOP with camel I ever built was the one from the movie The Great Waldo Pepper, which was just, I think, Revell's SOP with camel with a different box on it. But the thing I remembered about when I got home and started working on the basement, I was like, it actually had holes in it for you to rig it. And I thought that was a nice touch. You didn't have to drill out. They were already there, so you know exactly where all the rigging went.
One of the things that we never talk about is that when these companies are sitting around making these kits, there's a lot of things that they do with the kits that make them much more desirable and easier to put together.
Uh-huh.
Not all of them, but a fair amount of them. They do put a lot of engineering into it. It's an amazing amount of engineering that goes into it. And, they really do put in a tremendous effort and cost to bring that little kit in the box to the shelf.
Yep. Takes about a year. Takes a lot of money. Takes engineers who know what they're doing to draw the draw. People forget, when you make a mold, it starts with engineering drawings. Because the metal cutter or the guy who's going to make the pattern, he's got to have that to work off of. And I've talked to Keeler about making molds and stuff, and at some point it's just artisanship. You got to have someone who is a skilled sculptor, and then when that's all done, then you got to. You think about it; it involves almost every conceivable skill: engineering, sculpting, heavy metal work, lathe operation, fine tooling.
Well,
and
the first thing you got to do is you got to measure everything on the real item. If you can't get the engineering drawings, you go to the actual item and you measure everything.
Oh, man. Do not try to talk before you swallow your whiskey halfway. Oh, man.
Well, not whiskey, but...
Well, it's bourbon, but still. Steve said something. I was going to say something, and I had the whiskey halfway down. Boy, that's just dumb. Oh, God, my eyes are watering.
Hey, now's the time to talk.
Yeah, you got a minute. Keep going, Steve.
Go ahead, Steve.
Oh, now he's quiet. Steve? Steve?
Did we lose Steve?
Did we lose? He said we might lose the call. Okay, Ken, you got the talking joke and carry the show for a minute while I sit here and cry.
I remember most of the 70s. I do. That's when I graduated. I remember lots of that.
You're the only audiovisual kid I know who didn't do smoke pot.
No, didn't do any of that. But
No, well,
I do remember quite a bit of it.
Oh.
And my junior year was the best year. I just had the best time in my junior year. It was great.
I remember what a friend of mine said about his senior year. The most fun I had was my third time through.
Yeah, we had one of those guys.
Right out of Dazed and Confused. What was that
Yeah,
famous
he was
one-liner, Matt
20 before
McConaughey?
he graduated.
What's that? Matt McConaughey's best one-liner? You know what the best thing about 18-year-old girls is? What's that? Every year they make a whole new batch of them. Yep. There's goes.
Garfield says that stuff must be really bottom shelf.
Actually, it's Angel's Envy, but it burns when it goes down the wrong pipe. Woo!
No, never smoked anything.
When my throat muscles are so uncoordinated they can't drink whiskey, I've got it's time to go see the doctor. Oh, I might have to start drinking whiskey with a straw.
That's true as a train nut. Oh, never would have figured that.
What's that?
Rod Stewart was a train nut. Never would have figured that.
Oh, really? So was the late was it Gary Coleman, the little short actor? I have a problem with just water. You think after 60 years I'd not drink and breathe at the same time? You would think. You know.
Okay, well, there goes Max's monetization.
Yep.
I like the 80s better. Not really.
Had a guy my senior year who's 22 avoiding Vietnam. Oh, here he goes.
It says Max cough medicine is supposed to stop coughing, not start it.
Yeah, really. Let me see if I can get Steve back. Of course, he may have got a call from somebody else. Drinking whiskey that has been banned from Canada. Angel's Enemy's banned in Canada?
You've reached 631.
Uh-oh. Okay, it's rolling the voicemail. He'll call us when he's ready. He may have gotten another call, or he may have just lost contact. He's out on the road, I
Maybe
think.
his battery died.
I'll stop drinking when I find a better way to get it down, yeah. Ah, there he is. Let's see, merge with Ken. And he's...
Coleman worked
I got-
train
Hey,
body
you're
shop
back.
for years.
And we're back.
I got knocked off. I couldn't get back on. I don't know what's going on with the phones.
The cell technology, still not perfect.
Yeah, yeah. It's probably the CIA.
I literally choked on my own spit. I want to pretend like I've never done that, but I have. Yeah, it's like you hiccup, breathe, and cough at the same time, and it goes down the wrong throat, wrong part of the throat. The epiglottis, it's an amazing muscle, but it ain't perfect.
Yeah.
There goes a great live version of "I Know I'm Losing You." It's amazing how calm the audience is during the Tour de Force performance. Oh.
You never finish your model railroad. You
No.
never finish it.
You never
If
finish
you
a
do,
real one.
You tear it apart and you start doing something else.
Oh, so I was celebrating vintage aviation. Then Gary Coleman wound up working at a train store, and I know he wound up also working as a security guard. But just because you made a lot of money, yeah, that's right. Gehring was. Gehring collected everything. He had art. He was a big hunter. He had live exotic animals. If he hadn't have been what he was, he would have been kind of a fun guy to hang out with, probably. But he was what he was, so there you go. Then with the Karen Hall, he had a massive collection of wine and liquor and everything.
Bill Campbell says, "Yeah, I'm glad to hear that. I thought I was the only person who hadn't smoked the funny stuff back in high school."
Yeah, hobby people never finish. That's true. That's like your stash. A stash is a permanently temporary situation. It's always in rotation. The in fact, today I was kind of rearranging the Tarbus a little bit to make room for the thing that Trey and Fran made for me, and I found a nice location for it, and where it's both visible but out of the way. And I mean, when I say out of the way, I mean where I won't be tripping over it or anything, but it's where you see where I've got there we go. And I thought it went really well right there in front of that balsa fuselage of the Cub Cruiser, and I thought there was a nice symmetry to that. And it's right there between all the models, but I can get to everything without having to step around it. But when you walk in the Tarbus, look to the left, there it is. And that was a really nice thing. Those guys actually built that thing, and that was no minor undertaking. I really appreciate that. I was thinking today is that when people spend money on you, that's great. That's beautiful. But when they're spending time doing things for you, that's the real, the real currency, if you will. And for those of you who didn't get a good look at it, let me just put it up here where you can. And that is a cylinder off a DC-3, an RC propeller, and a couple of models. And if it wasn't so heavy, I would wear it as a crown. But I was gonna make my morning video of me lugging that thing out to the Tarbus, stop, look at the camera, and go, "I'll tell you later. Right now, just open the door." But I was like, "This thing's too heavy. I'm just gonna put it in there." Yeah, Goering did have a Luftwaffe, an airplane collection. In fact, one of the airplanes he had, I think, was the Curtiss Helldiver, and it's like the last one. And it was, I think, what's left of it's in a Polish museum. I think Mark Felton did a thing about that. The guy was a 22 Victory Ace from World War One, so in fact, funny you should mention that, because just today, Indy Nidell over at Time Ghost, he and Spartacus Olsen and Anna Deinhardt were doing a thing, and one of the things they were talking about was the clean Wehrmacht myth. And apparently after World War II, when the American military wanted like an official history of the German army in World War II written, they let the old generals and field marshals write it. So of course they completely sanitized it and created the clean Wehrmacht myth. And everyone I know was over there was like, "Trust me, it was a myth." What is it? What has he said? But they had such bloody good-looking uniforms. I think Murphy's Law of Land Warfare, like number 17, is the side with the simplest uniforms wins. Now, I am wondering, on the science fiction side of kit model building, I haven't noticed any. Have they started building any of the kits from the new series Andor? Because I don't recall seeing any.
I got so many things they could make a kit of.
Well, they got that new TIE fighter they just had in the last episode, and they've introduced a couple of vehicles and stuff you didn't see, which you could probably pretty much kit bash out of any German truck or Kubelwagen. But
hey, in the last episode of the last season, they showed a close-up of Anders' gun. Do you know what it was, or was it just total fabrication?
It's probably built on a real firearm frame, like they built Han Solo's DL-44 blaster on a broom handle Mauser. But I don't know if Andor's in Firefly, Mal's pistol was, I think it was based on a Charter Arms, but it was based on an American-made revolver, and and they talked about what the Blade Runner gun was based on, and I forget what it was, but I don't know. I don't know if I build my 1-to-1 DC3 one part at a time, starting with the cylinder. But if Cassian's is based on something, I don't know what it is. Now, I did recognize some of the weapons they had were based on. One of them looked like it was based on a Beretta. Some of them I did. I could actually see the slide. I couldn't necessarily make out what it was based on. I mean, I think one of them even had a Picatinny rail on it, but which makes sense. Actually, in the original Star Wars, the Stormtroopers' weapons in the original Star Wars, yeah, the small weapons were just Sterlings, British Patchett side-loading submachine guns with little 5-round magazines in them. They didn't even dress them up. They just, because when the Patchett with the stock folded up, it's basically a follow-on to the Sten gun, although much better made. And the big gun that one of them was carrying with, I think, was just an MG-34. Spielberg's attitude was, these guys are based on the Nazis, just give them German weapons, and those machine guns look like something from outer space anyway. So what the heck? What is the props guy? I mean, they might add a scope to it or something, but other than that, now they've gotten more into dressing them up more. But what was that movie? I Come in Peace, where I think it was Dan Aykroyd played one of the aliens when he comes after the guy. His famous space gun's just was a Coleco 22. They didn't even bother to dress it up. The thing had the big drum magazine on the back, and it just looked so weird. It looks fine the way it is. And
Barry said that Blade Runner's pistol was based on a Taurus Bulldog, I think.
Okay, yeah, that sounds right. Well, Charter Arms made the Bulldog, but I think it was based on a Taurus. And it could have been Charter Arms, but I do seem to remember it was based on an old revolver, and it kind of makes sense. Why reinvent the wheel? And you already got working mechanism in there, so if you want them to shoot marker blanks or something, because if you see the behind-the-scenes photo when Han's running around with his blaster, his DL-44, he's shooting these little caps. Well, the guns have to function. So they got to have enough of a charge. They plug the barrels and put a little pinhole in them so the gas can get through, but it causes enough back pressure to cycle them. But you can't put a live round in there. Because I suppose you could if it was a wad cutter, had a flat flush face, but normally they just use blank cartridges. They have blank fire and only BFA on them, but they have to be. But there's no recoil. They could pop, pop, pop. But the special effects guys need that because they have to see the little spark there to know where to put the blaster bolt in post production. We come in pieces, bzz, yeah, and you're going in pieces. Charter Arms was an importer. Taurus was the manufacturer. Okay, that makes sense. All right, that sounds about right. I remember when I was policeman Alexandria, that's where Inter Arms was based. And I wanted to get a PPKS because they would give one to a local police officer at cost. So I got it for like $315. You had to do all your paperwork and wait and everything to pick it up. And, it's Walther PPKS. But they had Inter Arms stamped on there because that was the importer. But Inter Arms didn't make it. It was a real Walther. And apparently at the time you could not get a straight PPK, the little 6-shot that James Bond carried, because the grip was too short and they had those import restrictions back then. So they extended the grip a little bit, got a 7th round in the magazine, made it the KS. Ta-da! Now it's perfectly... I liked it better anyway because you could get your hand on it, a little PPK. There's a reason James Bond had his little pinky finger hanging out, and it wasn't style. Okay, here's a trivia question for all you movie buffs and gun buffs out there. Before Bond got his PPK, what did he carry and in what caliber?
A Beretta.
Mm-hmm. What caliber?
Oh, Frank said, anyone remember the Matt Helm movies with Dean Martin?
Oh, God,
yes. Shot backwards. I remember that movie. I saw that when I was a kid. My parents took us to the drive-in.
I remember the Matt Helm movies and then Flint movies. The Flint movies with James Coburn.
I remember remember the scene where the girl had the gun that shot backwards?
Yeah.
And a guy, the enemy guy came up and captured her, and she ran over and gave him the gun and started running away. And he's like, "What?" He tried to shoot her and shot himself.
Yeah. I remember he'd also had the 10-second delay. He pulled the trigger and laid it up there, and some idiot walks up, just sees a gun sitting there, and of course it just goes off. 32? No, actually, if I'm not mistaken, at least according to the books, Bond actually carried a 25 caliber Beretta with the grips removed, and he wrapped tape around it because it laid flat. Because Bond was all about style. And I think it was a 25. It might have been a 32. But I remember the Beast with the T-55, yeah. Oh, that makes sense. Water, that's good. And when they, I was like, what a wimpy little gun. And they said, yeah, but the simple fact is that Bond was a expert shot, and he would of course only shoot up close, and it was just, and I was like, well, they gave him the PPK. Now the irony is, and most of you guys probably already know this, was that Princess Margaret, a guy tried to kidnap her, and her Secret Service agent, who was armed with a PPK, tried to fire, and the thing jammed on him. And I was like, what? So let's.
Barry says, Max, it was a Charter Arms Bulldog.
Okay, well, one of the other guys said that, yeah, Charter Arms Bulldog, but it was it was just up here. It was imported by let's see, what was it he said? Everybody knows it was the Walker Bulldog.
Somebody else asked a question too.
Taurus is the manufacturer. Charter was the importer.
Get to it.
Okay.
Slightly change the subject. Have you ever flown in a DC-3 or a tri-motor?
I had my chance. I didn't do it. I did fly on a Beech 18. I wanted to skydive out of the DC-3, but they were only running the Cessna 195 that day because there weren't enough people to take the DC-3 up. And that was like 25-year-old girl that was the pilot on the thing. She loved that DC-3. And she flew it all single pilot. I had a chance to go up in a tri-motor, and I didn't. I went up in a helicopter instead. And a fellow, a friend of my dad, said, one day you're going to regret that because you can go up in a helicopter anytime. Tri-motor's a rare thing. And he was right. Yeah, 4 Matt Helm movies, 2 Flint movies. A lot of people think the Flint and Matt Helm movies are more parody or whatever you want to call it, that they weren't really meant to be as serious as James Bond. But the one I remember is Winchester 92s and 18. So yeah, they love the Winchester 92. John Wayne was carrying one in True Grit. And they've gotten a lot better about that in the movies. They're paying more attention to firearms, getting more authentic with it. And there were dozens of gun companies back then also. Everybody in the Cowboys either carrying a Smith, a Schofield, or a Colt, and usually Colts. And I'm like, there were 100 gun makers back then. So there was all kinds of weird stuff. Everything from Griswolds to Adams and all these others that, the mare's leg, yeah.
The landing was exceedingly hard. A tri-motor.
6 and B-17 really ride. There you go.
3 engines.
Yeah, and it was basically a tin can.
Pretty much, yeah.
What's that?
I remember years ago there was one in Ocean City, Maryland. I remember walking past it from a parking lot, and it was an old guy, and he was offering rides in the thing. And I thought, now that would be kind of cool, but it was expensive.
What was that in?
It was in Ocean City. It was a triplane.
You mean a tri-motor?
Yeah, the tri-motor.
Yeah. Triplane has 3 wings. Tri-motor has 3 wings.
Yeah, I know. I screwed up there. Yes, it was a tri-motor, and it was a really old guy, and he had a little microphone there, and he was speaking over PA, and he was talking about the plane. And for like $45, you could ride in the back. For $60, you could ride in the co-pilot seat.
I'd pay that today without batting an eye. Hey, I flew in an airplane you guys never heard of. The Catfish Special was a home built, and it was, just to give you a visual, just imagine a bass boat with wings, and you have this 2-inch nylon lap belt, the only thing holding you in. and it is this open cockpit. The only thing more open cockpit was what they called a breezy, which you literally sat on the framing. And I'm sitting there riding along in this thing, and like, God, this is so cool. Dear God, please don't let us hit any turbulence.
I remember this one movie. I don't even know what the name of it was. There's this guy had an open cockpit biplane, and this guy, he was a bad guy, whatever. He wanted a ride in the airplane. He wanted the pilot to take him someplace.
High road to China.
And he's in the front seat, and he's flying along, and he rolls the plane very slowly, and the guy just falls right out.
That's Tom Selleck in High Road to China. Basically, they were holding his friends hostage, and he had to go do a job for them, and they put one of their goons in the front seat. And he said, "What are you going to do?" He goes, "This guy's used to ride in a wagon. I guarantee you he doesn't know what a seatbelt is." So he gets in, puts his harness on. Of course, the guy sits in front, not knowing any better. And once he gets up, he just rolls inverted, and bye-bye, bad guy. And that's the one where he winds up pulling the Lewis gun off. That's the one where he winds up pulling the Lewis gun off the top of the wing and, fighting a ground battle. And, yeah, it was an okay movie. That was just a romp, I had Wilford Brimley, who was out there fighting his private war. You can fly in a Lancaster, but there's a 2-year-old. I'd pay $1,000 to ride in a Lancaster, to be honest. I've been in B-17s and B-24s, and I'll tell you something, though. Those airplanes, just to get around in street clothes, are tight. Can you imagine doing it in a heavy bomber jacket with toting an oxygen bottle and wearing a parachute? I think we lost Steve again.
Yeah, that's entirely possible.
You're the only one I'll try calling him, but I don't. But, I complain when I'm trying to get the figure in an airplane model or something. Like, this thing won't fit. And then I get in the real airplane and go, oh, that's why.
You've reached 631-375.
Nah, you'll have to call us. Ugh. But
wow, there's a lot of comments coming. I can't even read them all. I have flown the broom on a KC-135.
Yeah, gyrocopters are sporty.
I guess it means the boom.
Well, I used to fly an ultralight, hanging out there in the breeze. I loved it.
No, I think the boom on a KC-135, the Fuhrer.
Mm-hmm. The gas passer.
Yeah. Yeah, the gas passer.
Well, thank you, Chris. The thing is that when I was young and immortal and could not be damaged by God or nature, I loved doing skydiving and flying in ultralights and stuff like that. Oh, by the way, did you guys see the Cessna that made the emergency landing in Santa Monica on the golf course? I thought it was fake at first. I thought it was CGI because I was like, that's just too perfect. There's a kid with a future in aviation. Take care, Bill. Thanks for coming out and seeing us today. Flew a couple of Heritage QFE for Phantoms at Ellington for the air show.
Wait a minute. This is an important question. Lemire Crazy. Max, do you think you'll ever fly again?
No, I actually don't. When I was getting towards the end of my career, here he is. He's back. Okay, merge with Ken. And let's merge it. Here we go. We are currently experiencing technical difficulties.
Nine.
Are you there?
I'm here.
You're kind of breaking up a little bit.
Playing the phone company.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, you're definitely coming through 3x3. And I was afraid your pacemaker would quit.
Okay, go ahead and finish your answer.
But no, I don't think I'm going to fly anymore. I made my wife a promise. One of the problems is I'm sitting there watching Blanco Lirio and Scott Perdue and Hoovie's pilot debrief about all these mishaps. And my wife is like, you're never flying an airplane again. And I'm like, it's education. I learn from other people's mistakes. But eventually it's but I was like, I look at how much it costs to fly an airplane or to own one. And it really... it really dissuades you. Years ago, when we first got married, I was looking at buying a small plane, and I'd owned one before. And we ran the numbers. I would be out $575 a month before I turned the first blade. And I was just like, I do it for work. And also, the thing that really scared me was when I was working was if I do something stupid in the small plane, it's not like they say, hey, we're going to violate you, but we're only going to take your private pilot privileges. You can still go fly. You can still go to work. There are a lot of airline pilots that get grounded temporarily or whatever because of something they do in their own airplane. And I was just kind of like, I've got 18 plus thousand hours. It's not like I'm going to see something I haven't seen or do something I haven't done. There are a few airplanes I really like, but I can't afford them. And I'm just like, you know what? It's just, I love aviation. I always will. And there's always some situation may come up I don't foresee where I may get back into flying again. Like if something happens to all my money and I have to go back to work. But, or, we're escaping a volcano or a Godzilla attack or Martians, in a situation like Gene Barry in War of the Worlds when him and Ann Robinson have to steal the little, Army liaison plane.
So you picture yourself as kind of like the modern day Gerard Butler, is that it?
Gerard Butler? Don't think I make the connection on that one.
What, the guy from the 300?
What about him?
I said you picture yourself as him.
How's that?
He's in those catastrophe movies where he's always flying something to get out of it.
Okay. If somebody... When my brother and I went and saw the Dino De Laurentiis King Kong, where he's on top of the World Trade Center, and he's like, if you were one of those soldiers on the World Trade Center, what would you want? And I went, a jetpack.
Yeah. A parachute.
Yeah. Or a parachute, yeah. You're a nerd when you see Kong jump from one building to the other and go, oh, that's nonsense. There's no way that gorilla could make that jump.
Yeah.
But meanwhile, you have no problem with a 100-foot gorilla.
Lance says the boat is a hole in the water you dump money into. An airplane is that 10 times.
It is. And
I remember when you told me, you said, Ken, I'm glad you bought a boat because I didn't want you to buy an airplane.
and boats and cars, one of the beauties of restoring a car is there's really not much in the way of governmental involvement until maybe you try to register it. But and really the same with a boat. But with an airplane, you can't look at that thing without using PM certified parts. People ask what makes an airline fly, and I always tell them money. Yes, exactly. They say what does it take to start an airline? And ego and money. And I can't think of a more ego-driven industry than the airline industry.
And lack of common sense.
Well, you guys all know the old saying, how do you make a small fortune in aviation? Ken?
Start with a large fortune.
Yep.
That's what Trey's just said. Exact same thing.
Yeah, it's
just now.
And I came up with a business I know a couple of pilots that come up with actually credible business plans for airlines. And there are a lot of airlines out there. Are any of you guys... Oh, God, what's the name of that website I like to go to? It's a British guy. He used to be a career flight attendant. And he covers all these bankrupt airlines. All right? And he really does. He does for bankrupt airlines what I do for kit model companies. And hold on real quick. Let me see. I think I've got him saved here. Let me see. Because you guys will enjoy it. God bless the guy. He does a ton of research. Grounded. That's the name of it. Grounded. And he does airlines most people never heard of. Monarch and all these little airlines. He does old ones and new ones. And he talks about how they went bankrupt and what happened. Max Verstappen, F1 driver, just purchased a new jet for $58 million. When you're buying $58 million jets, you probably don't care what it cost. And that is about the right price for a Gulfstream or a Global Express. But a lot of these airlines actually start off and start doing pretty good. But it takes so little. I know where the Piper Navajo. Oh, I love the Chieftain. I went to flight safety for the Chieftain. That was my first professional school trained airplane. I was professionally. I went to flight safety. That was the first airplane I was professionally school trained on. I love the Chieftain. I'd love it, but at 40 gallons an hour and 164 knots, I don't need to haul 8 people around. You know, what am I going to do?
Christopher says, "I know where a Piper Navajo
I was just
Chieftain
addressing
is going
that,
up
Ken.
for sale soon."
Ken, I was literally, that's what I was talking about. I went to flight safety for the Navajo. And if I was going to get a cabin twin, that's what it would be. I love the Navajo, especially the Chieftain. Nice pair of 350, but like I say, 40 gallons an hour at 164 knots. And it's great if you don't need to haul 8 people around. But I actually know a guy that had a Navajo. He was letting go for about 8.
School.
What?
I remember when you checked out of it and you went down to Orlando to the simulator.
Lakeland, yeah, that's right. That was, they have flight safety at it down there, and actually technically we call it a simulator. Technically, it was a ground trainer. Simulators technically, well, actually be I guess a level B simulator. It had cockpit visual, but it didn't move. Okay, it wasn't a level D that's up on the jacks, but everything in it worked. Every instrument worked, and you had a visual for the runway for takeoff and landing, and they were chopping engines on us IMC every time, and you get pretty good at it after a while. I did tilt the machine one time though. Well, the Cheyenne, but the Cheyenne's got turbines on it. You know, that's what old Superman Chris Rees had. But
too bad he didn't have a bulletproof one.
Well, I remember when he fell off that horse, and I was kind of like, look, I could see flying airplanes, but jumping over fences and horses, that's just dangerous.
No, I meant, okay.
Let me ask you a question, Max.
Yeah.
Are you ever going to feel comfortable flying in the back of an airplane?
I've done so much deadheading. Of course, if I look up in the cockpit and see a couple of clowns that I don't know. I'm like, oh, God, you.
Oh, wow. They're still flying.
Not these guys.
Nah, Ken, I'm just going to be the typical passenger. Have a couple of whiskeys before I get on the plane and try to go to sleep. I'll put it in the hands of God because most pilots think they're God. So, I tell you what I would like to find. I've only found one company. I would like a kit model of a Navajo. And there's some little obscure company that made one, and I was going to get it off eBay, and I forget how much they wanted for it, but it was stupid expensive. And I was like, never mind. And I've seen a couple of build-ups. It's not a perfect kit, but it's okay. But again, this gets back to my opinion. The kit model industry doesn't really pay. I mean, I've got a bunch of civilian aircraft right here. But I mean, come on, they make a model of the Aero Subaru, but not the Navajo? Really? What kind of... They made 200 Aero Subarus. They made 2,000 Navajos. There's a lot of airplanes they need to be making kit models of that they don't. Now, Ken... I just had a thought, and we all know there's nothing good ever comes of that.
That's a dangerous thing.
You should... Hold on. Oh, crap. Oh, crap. Oh, crap. Oh, crap. Oh, crap. Oh, crap. I just had something worse than a thought, Ken, Steve.
Yeah,
another bad idea?
I just had an idea.
Really
yep, an idea is way more dangerous than a thought. We need.
Go ahead, tell us.
Since it'd be a specialty item, we need to 3D print kits of airplanes that aren't made, like the Piper Navajo. Just sell them as bag kits.
Not too bad of an idea. What do you think, Steve?
Yeah, that would be pretty good.
We could do things like the Navajo, in fact, you could do all 3 Navajos, the 310, the 325 CR, and the Chieftain. We could do the Cheyenne, the 421. Most of these things don't have any kits made of them. I think there's only one 310 kit, and that's the old straight tail that was, I think, originally Comet that Aurora made. And that son of a gun, if you find one on freaking eBay, they want $300 damn for it.
Yeah, we could get Mike to do the box art.
Mm-hmm. Probably be a bag kit, but what the heck. And his train of thought derailed. Slammed it into emergency, went right off the tracks. It's getting the CADs that's the expensive bit. You know, Ricky, you're right, but let me proffer a thought. And of course, this is a result of modern technology. The 3D view drawings are available. You can find those in 30 seconds on the internet. With the 3D view drawings and someone like Ken with some computer experience, you could probably, and especially he's getting into 3D printing, you could probably build the file, knock out an original, see what needs to be changed, and a few iterations of it. Yeah, I know, Frank, that I actually have some handmade. I used to deal in the Filipino. That's actually where Max's models comes from. I started dealing in the pre-made desktop models, Long Prosper and Worcester, and then I had a guy in the Philippines named Topwood that used to hand carve a bunch of the models. I still have some of them, but that was, I mean, they did great work. But I was thinking, I'd really like to get more into the kit model stuff where you can stamp them out. And I don't know, Ken. I'll bet you there's probably already files for half the airplanes out there from other people who've done it. So,
ooh, Ricky Wolf says we have 3 designers if you need help.
Ooh, well, Ricky, how much for? You have to figure out how much it would cost to get the file so that Ken could 3D print some Navajo chieftains. And while you're at it, we do 1900s, 1900D. There is a company out there that does the 1900D already, and they ain't cheap either. I think they're, I forget what the scale is. I don't think they're 172. Okay, hold on. Let's go off to Scalemates. I thought about getting one, but I saw the price and it scared me away. Oops, shoot.
Max, wasn't that Sphincter Probe on your desk 3D printed?
Yep. Okay.
With the modern 3D scanners that they have now, it's not too hard.
A model does the Beech 1900D, and they do it in the Mesa Airline colors. Okay, so I wonder how much that little puppy cost. Well, let's see. Let's go to eBay and see what people are trying to get for them.
Bill Paul said, would you need licensing from the original manufacturers?
And not if I don't tell them.
Maybe. Wouldn't be much, though.
Yeah, if you do. Okay. A 1/72nd scale A model Beech 1900D is, the prices are bouncing between $42 and $100. Oh, that's 2 kits. That's a Jetstream N19. So they're running about $50 for a 1/72nd scale kit. That's actually not, when you get right down to it, not that horrendous. Free delivery, 44, 46. It doesn't look that bad. I'm looking at the parts. It doesn't look that bad, actually.
Okay, hang on a second, Max. Bill Murray, send Max the link in the comments to that file on CG Trader.
Just email it to me. Max's Models at Yahoo.
Navajo.
Yeah, email it to me.
CG Trader does 3D.
Is Fran taking off? I got to drop
files,
off.
But
okay.
They're not necessarily
Fran, thanks for
printable.
joining us, man, and thanks again for the gift. I really do appreciate it, guys. More than anything else, I appreciate the time and effort you put into it. I thought about having it here, but the thing's too heavy.
Yeah, not too many guys can have access to DC3 jugs.
Yeah. Well, like Trace said, I guess, is somebody going to miss it? And like he said, the statute of limitations is long since expired. I'm out of water.
Okay, Nathan, and your wife is okay with this?
Oh, the snake picture.
I have car parts in my bedroom.
Crap, guys, the snake picture. Where is it? Oh, Max, you idiot. Hold on. You guys, I gotta go ahead and talk. I gotta find this picture and get it up here because this is one of the most Florida things I've ever seen. Go ahead. Keep talking. It's taking me a minute to find it.
Yeah, how about a Mooney, like an M20 or something like that? That's a fast plane.
Okay, let's see. Is it Messenger?
Nathan says, I'm not married, so that's not an issue.
Okay, share.
KLSC said, just look for a DC-3 running on 17 cylinders. That's where it came from.
Yeah. Okay.
Tom Lee says, used to work with a gal who got mad at her boyfriend for keeping his chainsaw in their bedroom.
I bet that kept her in line.
Okay, it's going to take a minute to get.
She got mad because he left it on the floor next to her side of the bed, and she stepped on it. Yeah, girls really don't like stepping on chainsaws getting out of the bed. That just does
Who
not
does?
work for them.
It's like stepping on Legos. Okay, I'm emailing these to myself so I don't have to disconnect the phone. All right,
Talk
there's.
amongst yourselves.
I'm going to show you a couple of most Florida photos you will ever see. Trey sent me these. This is, and the thing is, one of them's absolutely real. The other one, I don't doubt. Come on. Here we go.
Oh, Trey said, sadly, the cylinder the DC-3 came from was destroyed in a hurricane. At least a piece of it found a good home.
Let's see. I'm just going to put this under D. Save. Hold on. And hold on one more. There's a story behind this, and it is, dear God, is it? It's. Let me just. Okay, save as. D. Okay. Close that. Close that. All right, here we go.
Andy Chandler says, yes, but you know how to start it. Don Lee said, yes, she did.
Okay. If you ever want to understand Florida, you need only see this picture. It kind of explains everything.
No, we didn't get any pictures of the rabbit.
And the other one is one Trey took that's coming here in just a bit. Let me see if... it closed YouTube.
I didn't get a good look at it before. That is funny.
That may pretty much sum up Florida in a nutshell. Okay. And although, but here is one. Here, the next one though is not a gag photo. This is a real picture that Trey took, and we will explain because you need some explanation on this one. Okay.
Oh, I'll bet.
All right. Here, I'm going to wait till it pops up on the screen here.
It's up there.
That's the squirrel killing the snake, right?
Oh, yeah.
There's another one coming here. There we go. Okay. So let me explain what you are looking at here. This is a snake that was in the process of trying to kill and eat a frog, I believe it was, when apparently the frog, it was inside a junction box when the frog reached up and hit something electrical and grounded them, and they both fried in place.
Oh.
And Trey has labeled this The Last Supper.
The Last Supper.
You can see what's left of the frog on the far right in the mouth of the snake. You know, I mean,
It's pretty shriveled up.
Cooked them both.
Exploded.
And I'm like, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to, as your captain, I'd like to welcome you to Florida. It ain't all Mai Tais and palm trees. Well, Mai Tais are more of a... It ain't all Cuba Libres and palm trees.
Okay, Max, you can take the picture back off now.
I can't stop looking at it. It is kind of a nightmare fuel. Although that one, I'm like, squirrel got some tood going, man. Squirrel be like, bite this. Kamikaze squirrel.
Celebrating vintage model says, badass Ricky Tikki Tavi.
Yeah, there you go. I saw Ricky Tikki Tavi last night.
Florida is the land that God forgot.
You know what? You could also label this one as a trip to a Florida dentist. But anyway. So I saw that, man. I like, you know, you watch all these 10 reasons not to live in Florida things, and every one of them mentions the critters. And but hey, you know, my buddy Bill Hall lives up in New Hampshire, and he sent me a picture out of his backyard. It was a friggin' black bear. So, you know, admittedly we got more of that stuff, but still.
I don't think Alaska's got a whole lot on Florida.
No, Alaska.
Alaska's got big ass bears.
The thing is that Florida doesn't have any wildlife that goes out of its way to hunt you. It has wildlife that's dangerous if you come across it. Alaska has wildlife that will pick up your scent, track you down like Dog the Bounty Hunter, and, you know, pick its teeth with your bones when it's done.
Or how about the polar bears that chase you?
Dude, the polar bear picks up your scent. You had either better have a really good rifle or really close to the chopper.
Did you see the thing on Instagram the other day where this guy was out cutting wood, and he goes to get some more wood, and there's like a pile, and behind the pile there was a polar bear, and the thing starts chasing him, and he runs and jumps on a snowmobile. Thank God it started.
Yeah.
It would have been over.
And he dropped his gun, too, just before he got on the thing.
Well, I got to tell you, in all honesty, Ken, even if he'd given that polar bear a fatal shot, it wouldn't have died for several minutes. And it would have, unless it was a brain shot, which isn't going to happen on the run, it would have carved him to little bitty polar bear snacks before it died. Bears have a slow beating heart, a fatal wound. They train their dogs to stay away from them because even after they're down, they're not out. And
there's in North Alaska, they have cages that are around the outside doors, and the reason they're there is because if you walk outside, there could be a polar bear standing there. And they put the cages there to protect you from anything that might be out there to want to eat you before you have a chance to run back inside.
Years ago,
doors to the alligators.
Well, years ago, they did a documentary that was done up the North Pole on a ship, and the ship gets caught in the ice, and the crew have to lock themselves in hard because the polar bears come on the ship. All right, and they play with the door. And one of the guys who was one of the scientists got a bright idea. He goes, "We got shark cages, right? Yeah. Put me out on the ice in one of these cages. We'll padlock it shut, and that way I can get great, footage up close of the polar bears, right?" And he's out on the ice in effectively what's a shark cage. They may have made it a polar bear cage. It may have been made for this job. And the polar bears come up and they're sniffing around it, playing with it. You know what polar bears have that sharks don't? Paws.
Arms.
Paws, arms. They start playing around, pushing the cage around, trying to tear it open. They can't. He's like, I'm safe. Then one of them hits the lock and it rattles around. And the polar bear's like, hey, look. And they start whacking the lock with their paws. And I'm like, that's probably a $25 master lock. How long do you think it's going to take an 800-pound polar bear to swat that thing off? And all of a sudden, they're like, yeah, I think you better blow the horn on the ship and reel this thing in. And all of a sudden, you got guys coming out with rifles getting ready. It's like,
And if the guy was smart, a drone would have done the same thing.
I was going to say, just plant your camera on the ice. You want to know what's like inside a polar bear? Put your camera inside a chunk of meat. But,
Frank says, my family and I went to Alaska last year, and one of the hiking trails had a sign that said, bang 2 sticks together to keep the bears away. Yeah, that's going to help.
That'll work. Yeah.
There's so many OZ things out there that are bitey, stingy, bitey things that want to kill you.
When I was in Anchorage up there for Halloween, they actually had people walking around with the kids with loaded guns to protect them from the bears.
Yeah.
In the city. Of course, the city is only 150,000 people.
Bears are cute as a button. My wife and I watched the TV show Ghosts, and they had the one girl, Flower, who was killed by a bear when she was high and tried to pet the bear. And 2 episodes ago, she's talking about, she goes, oh, the bears are so cute. After they killed me, I was looking at my body, and the cubs came up, and oh, the cubs are so cute. And then they started gnawing on my body. Yeah, and I was like, yeah, they're cute right until they're gnawing your leg off, you know. And, but the,
yeah, there was a video that I saw when I was in Alaska. This guy had walked out to his car, and there was a polar bear in the parking lot, and it started chasing him around his car, and he's running around one side, he's looking at the bear, and the bear's looking up over the hood, seeing where he's at, and he runs away, and the guy runs around the other side, and his buddy's holding the camera, laughing his ass off. until the guy finally runs around. Yeah, great friend. Until the guy eventually ran around, was able to jump in his car, and the bear pushed the car a couple of times and then lost interest and walked away.
You can startle a bear with a horn or something and buy yourself some time, but they recover pretty quick. He's talking about, Vintage is talking about Cocaine Bear. We were just talking about the other day. What a stupid plot. And they're like, oh, yeah? Have you ever seen a bear on cocaine? How do you know how he'd act? I gotta admit, that was an interesting idea for a movie, Cocaine Bear.
Hi, bear. Yeah, that would be wonderful to encounter.
Well,
Sluggo, you really are a deranged human.
He does have an interesting way of looking at things.
Well, up Montana, my brother's neighbor a few years ago pulled up with a dead bear on I think it was a flatbed. He goes, and he's like, yeah, this thing was killing my cattle. We finally got it. He goes, what'd you take it with? 30-06, 335, Chevy pickup.
Yeah.
Bear just ran out in the road. Bam! Yeah. And you know what you do when you hit a bear with a car? You stay in the car. It may be dead, and it may get up and attack, Oh, yeah. I saw that old joke about the bells. It says, to get rid of, to startle bears and help fend yourself off, you should get little bells and pepper spray. And they go, how do you know it's grizzly bear scat when you find its poop? Because you hear the little bells and it smells like pepper spray.
Yeah.
When I got to Anchorage, the second day I was there, I looked at the front page of the local paper, and it was talking about a guy who on the edge of the city shot the second largest grizzly bear ever shot out his back door of his house in his backyard.
Welcome to living in the sticks.
No, he wasn't in the sticks.
Ricky,
this is on the edge of the city.
Don't underestimate what a vicious rabbit can do. I saw what it did to King Arthur in Monty Python.
Yes, Ricky.
You better have a holy hand grenade.
And the Holy Grail.
Yeah. Well, you better have a holy hand grenade. A pound of cocaine would give anyone a heart attack. Bears have got to learn moderation. Yeah, you don't have to outrun the bear. Just outrun the other guy and hope there's not another bear. Thou shalt not count to 3 for 4, for sure 4 shall be too great. Oh, God. Monty Python.
Yeah, we had that conversation when the rabbit showed up at the party.
We were talking about that with the rabbit. We had a very cocky rabbit show up at the party yesterday. He walked right up to the edge of the patio. I was like, I wonder if the humans are going to drop some of the delicious looking, cake. The cake was a cannoli cake. You just cannot go wrong.
Oh, that was
You wanted
really
the barbecue.
good cake. Oh, yeah, maybe. Well, the barbecue was inside.
Oh, okay.
We were just eating outside.
I mean, we ate it.
What do we have?
Yeah,
we
there
had
was nothing left
16
over of
people.
that
I think we had
barbecue after
16
we were done
people at the
eating.
party. I admit I'd overcounted because some of the spouses didn't come, which so, but still, it was great. The inner circle was all there, you know. Steve was there on the phone, so he phoned it in literally. But Barry came up on Amtrak, rode the train all the way up, and that was an experience.
Yeah.
Ken came up via Orlando because he had to stop and make sure that he let Dean play with the jet engine here.
No, I didn't. No, he didn't play with it. I showed it to him.
Oh,
And
okay.
he's just, oh, that's cool.
Yeah, when it has
8 years
grandson
old, he
approval,
already
it's a cool
recognizes
toy.
Cool jet.
Trey and Fran both drove up all the way from Orlando. You know, Jerry came up from Orlando and Wanda. I was very impressed because, you know, a lot of people traveled a long way. My sister came in from Tallahassee, and it means a lot. And I was really glad Jerry and Wanda, because Jerry got me hired at Mesa, helped me get hired at Mesa and at Jet. He blue darted me at JetBlue because I corked my first interview because I'm an idiot. And so I'll tell you, I'll let you guys in on a little something though. When JetBlue first started, and this is pretty common to upstart airlines, they don't really have developed training programs. Their ground school is, here's the CD on the systems on the aircraft, learn it. And it's sink or swim. At one point, JetBlue had a 50% washout rate of new hires because it was a small airline. Airbus was doing the training. It wasn't very structured, and a lot of good guys just couldn't keep up with the pace. And I really don't blame them. But by the time I went in, if I'd gotten hired the first time I interviewed, I might have been one of them. You never know.
No, I don't think so. You'd pick that stuff up quick.
Well, I did back then. Now it's a little more. But I'll tell you what, though, flying the 190, it's just a big hairy Cessna. I mean, the airplane flies like any light twin in a lot of ways. The very honest airplane. When I moved to the Airbus, I had to completely re-engineer how I thought about flying. Just everything was different, and that's not a good or a bad. It's just different. And by the time I retired, I was finally feeling pretty comfortable in the airplane. But I was also starting to feel the, you know, just, I don't know, things are, what does they say? As you get older, sharper you don't get. And I was, but I think more than anything else, I was really starting to like the airplane and even some of the trips I was getting. I loved going out to California and seeing Mike. I loved going to Denver because I go out to Colpar's Hobbies, which is, if you're in the Denver area, Aurora, you have got to go to Colpar's Hobbies. Okay. That is one of the best stock hobby shops I've ever been to. I think my favorite place to go was when Mike and I would head on down to JD Hobbies in San Pedro. Lou's a great guy, and JD Hobbies has got so many vintage kits and a lot of new. He's got a ton of new stuff also, and 70% of his business is kit models. It's one of the few places where you walk in and it's 70%, 80% kit models, and they got a bunch of 3D printing going on, and they got some other stuff. But I mean, that play, and like my Mike and I said, we're mining for nostalgia, we're mining for memories, you know, because you go, oh, I built that, and I never get tired of that place. And you go upstairs, he's got all kinds of non-kit model related stuff. He went on his trip with Mr. Tammy. He sent me a bunch of pictures. I need to put a video together on that for him. He's trying to promote the TV show, you know, Boxed History, and you know, it's he's like you, Ken. He's eternally optimistic, and
well, what's the alternative?
Be like Steve.
Yeah. Thanks.
Come on, that's pretty good, Steve. That was quick. You got to appreciate that.
That was good.
Thank you. And if you can't needle your friends, you know. But the model cave outside of Ann Arbor.
I think he hung up that time.
Steve, you still there?
No,
I don't know.
Ain't not letting us off the hook that early.
you can give, you got to take.
You've given him a few zingers. Don't go play anything innocent here.
Nathan,
You
the
said
Smithsonian.
If you gotta give it, you gotta take it.
The Smithsonian Air and Space, when I first started going there in the 90s, did have a section dedicated to the history of model building. And they had moved that out to the Udvar Hazy facility. But it's just a rather large glass case with some kit models and a lot of handmade models. So they do have a thing dedicated to model building, but I agree it should be more than it is. Because a lot of us got our, started off in aviation. How many car mechanics, the first engine they ever worked on was a 1/25th scale styrene? How many pilots, the first plane they ever flew was a model that they built and they flew it in their mind. The importance of model building on the young, it's very much a motivating thing, and it makes you feel part of it. One of the reasons I love building spaceships and model airplanes, and it just made me feel like I was part of the world I wanted to be part of. And, I'll never get to fly a Mustang or a B-17, but by golly, I can, build models up and daydream about it. And that's a lot less expensive, by the way.
Not nearly as much fun.
Well, I tell you though, as my brother said, he's a navigator in the Air Force, and he said, people have this fantasy about military aviation. It looks glamorous and sexy and all that other stuff. He goes, you know what military aviation is? It is hot, smelly, sweaty, and dangerous. And almost every airplane cockpit, every military airplane cockpit I've been in has had the same smell, sweat and stress. And, but of course, the kind of guys that fly are the kind of guys who really, they live on that. They want to be there and do that. And it's still very competitive.
I remember that smell in a 152.
Yeah. There's no doubt that trainers have the single greatest reek of stress in them. And, but you can be comfortable flying an airplane, but put an observer on board, an evaluator, and all of a sudden your stress level goes to the roof because people have a thing about being in the evaluation environment. And
the seat cushions are always squished up in the middle.
That's because your rear end puckers in them.
I figured Max would get that one.
Yeah. Well, the thing... What? I keep thinking you're trying to say something, Steve, but cutting out.
No.
I'll tell you an airplane. There are two airplanes. One of them, a lot of guys I know who have been Air Force pilots who trained in the T-38 Talon. And you listen to guys like Ron Rogers talk about it. They love that airplane. But there's definitely a lot of farts in those seat pads, absolutely. A lot of guys I know who train said that airplane's scared the living crap out of them. You got a tiny wing, you'll get a sink rate you can't get out of. You've really got to fly that airplane all the time. But the one airplane I understand well, the Bells have it because all that plexiglass. They got the same smell of sweat and stress baked under bubble plexiglass. It's like putting it in a easy bake oven. Susie Homemaker easy bake oven. God, can you try to imagine trying to market a toy today called the Susie Homemaker? Woohoo!
They still make the easy bake, but it does not say Susie Homemaker.
Pussies. But the one airplane and it's killed more than its share of pilots is the MiG-23. And apparently you walk up to that airplane like you're approaching a Cobra. And they had the guys had to eject out of one at an air show recently. That airplane, it killed General Bond. I mean, it's a problem that's known to the MiG-23 pilots. You're going too fast to eject. If you try to pull the airplane up to go straight up to lose speed, the wings will come off. You can't get the throttle out of burner. You're just streaking across. The best thing they have is it runs out of gas. But the thing is, it'll come apart before then. I'm like, who designed this psychotic POS? But it's like, is there any fighter plane you would not want to fly? Yeah, the MiG-23. Or the Aviation 99.
I read that the guy who owns the MiG-21 that flies it to air shows.
Well, that's a much more civilized airplane.
Yeah, I know. I'm about to make a point.
Yeah.
He would call up the airport that he's flying to, and he'd declare a fuel emergency even before he took off.
Yeah, that's right. Not only that, Kim, but he would tell him I got to do 350 in the pattern. That airplane, you do not just slow that airplane up. And actually, the MiG-21, a lot of guys who have flown it, who talk like Hoot Gibson and the other stuff, but it's actually a very capable platform for what it was made for. It was a point defense interceptor. It was made to go fast, get out there in a hurry, lock up the radar, fire the missiles, come home. And as we learned in Vietnam, it was a pretty competent dogfighter. Visibility out of it sucked, but it's not an airplane to be underestimated. And the Indians extended the life of theirs by putting these, I think it was a modern French systems in them. They wound up, they go, look, the airplane is just a delivery platform, right? And the airplane can dogfight, and it does have guns, some versions of it. But the real thing is it's out there to get the missile out there. And
Celebrating said the F-7U killed tons of pilots. It was called the Ensign Eliminator.
Yeah, well, I don't think they had any ensigns flying the Cutlass, but that airplane it was only on the carriers for about 2 years, and they got rid of it. And they had one case where I think they were in the Med, and they had so many accidents that the captain of the ship, and this is back in the days when captains were gods, they were lord and high master of that ship, and he told the CAG, get every one of those Gutlasses off this ship and fly them to Rota. I don't want to see them on this ship again. So they beached them. They're in Spain. And
still there.
So it's just one of those things that, look, you got to understand, the Cutlass came about at a time when the Navy, when the military was very much in transition. You know what I talked about earlier about between 1936 and 1942, the level of growth in aviation technology was almost exponential. That happened again with jets, and the Cutlass, they were trying to do too much with the technology of the day. God bless them, the guys at Vought were innovative, but the airplane was just a basket load of compromises so they could have a supersonic multi-engine jet. And it just, the Blue Angels even got a couple of them played with. They never flew them in shows. There are pictures of them in Blue Angels markings. I think they only got 2 of them. They got rid of them as quick as they could. And as one of the crew chiefs on them said, it was never not broken. There was always something broken. But it was a stepping stone airplane. And it was a costly stepping stone, but they learned a lot.
It looked good.
It was awesome. That thing looked, you could, I actually took a Cutlass when I was about 14. I wanted to make a science fiction movie with my Super 8mm camera. I took a MiG-21, removed the horizontal tail planes, cut the wings midway, and put the horizontal, and this is long before Star Wars came out, put the horizontal stabilizer, the wingtips facing down, the part of the wing facing up, so it almost had a little bit of a TIE fighter layout with the MiG-21 fuselage. And the other spaceship that was its enemy was a Cutlass with the tail fins put on upside down. And they both looked awesome. A MiG-21 and a Cutlass. You could park those things on the set of Star Wars, and they look like they belong there. And, well, that was like the thing I want to say is that go in your stash, tell me what you have on the shelf of a real aircraft that looks like it ought to be in a science fiction movie. And the first thing I went to was the F-82 Twin Mustang. But half the Russian stuff and anything by Blumenvoss looks like it rolled in off of some kind of science fiction movie. And that Sanger Silverbird that I believe it was Ricky just sent me, I am like, I so want to put that in Godzilla Defense Force markings. The Silvervogel. And
what about that Australian airplane that was in Mad Max? That looks like
the little Avitruck crop duster. Doesn't really look so much sci-fi just because it's a prop job, but yeah, I know what you mean. It definitely has that,
like, what were you thinking when you designed this thing?
But
what did you have in mind?
Well, no, but Ken, that was a completely function over form airplane. They looked at what a crop duster needed and said, okay, let's do that. Everything was there to facilitate it. Although you could pull the hopper out and put like 2 or 3 people in the back so it could still carry some passengers. And Um, Celebrate. He's talking about Cutlass would be a good ornament for a '57 Chevy. Well, that's what the Sabre jet is where the little Sabre got its name and its look initially, and the P38. The fins on cars came out of the P38.
As a matter of fact, the Cutlass looks like the hood ornament on a '56 Chevy.
Oh yeah, that's right. It does, doesn't it?
Yeah.
I remember that now. Yeah, my dad had one of those.
I had a great uncle who died in a concentration camp. He fell out of it, and that's because he fell out of a guard tower. What, did Ilsa catch him sleeping on the job? I promised we wouldn't go there. Still one of the best exploitation movies ever made.
I got a question for you.
What?
Roy says the plane at Indiana Jones. Did that plane actually exist, or was that just a modified prop?
Which one are we talking about? The
I
biplane.
guess the bent wing that he was fighting around?
No, that was a totally invented airplane. You can get a wooden model of it, but that is an absolutely fictitious airplane. And
that's what I thought. Okay.
First off, they knew they were going to blow the thing up. And I think Spielberg wanted something that looked exotic and Blumenvossy. And so since we're not going to fly it, we're just going to blow it up. We can make it like anything we want. I think it was a cool design, too. It really worked. It was perfect for the job. And good night, Raymond. Well, guys, it's 9 o'clock. It's time to say nighty-night. And the first off,
Don Lee, the name of that movie is Slipstream.
What movie?
The movie that Mark Hamill flew the Optica in.
Oh, I never saw that one. I actually saw an Optica Observer
at. See that?
No, I saw an Optica Observer at Gaithersburg. They were trying to sell it. The guy used to own the radio station. He used to fly Cessna and do the weather reports. And there was a model of the plane in a diorama set with NPC. I did not know that, Paul. Gotta look that up. That's cool. Or maybe I did know that and forgot. That's getting scary, guys. I'm starting to get to the point where I'm like, I don't know if I didn't know that or if I knew it and forgot.
Well, when you get to be our age, you forget more than you know.
Yeah. Well, guys, that's it's been fun. Appreciate everybody coming out. I want to thank everyone who was able to make the party. I appreciate it. For those who couldn't, Steve, all is forgiven. No, I appreciate everybody, the gifts and everything else. It was wonderful. I couldn't ask to go out on a higher note, and I'm just grateful to everybody's. And to Fran and Trey, who spent a lot of time and effort making that going away present, and Ken, for you guys chipping in and getting this magnificent little jet engine so I can cure my jet itch when I get one.
Or you just turn it on high and sit there and have it blow on you.
Let's do that.
Now he's going to try and build a plane around it, Ken.
I'm going to need another one of these. Oh, by the way, they also had another gift for me that apparently is lost in the mail, but we'll see that when we get it. Well,
you'll really like that one.
When it does show up, I'll do an unboxing of it. And guys, you take care of yourselves. You want to say your goodnights, guys, and we'll sign off for the evening. Ken?
Good night, y'all.
Okay.
Yeah. All right, I'm going. Okay. Good night, everybody. Thanks for showing up. We appreciate you being here. We had a great time. Too bad you couldn't all come to Max's retirement party.
Awesome.
That would have been a blast. But you got a little taste of it. So thanks for showing up. Y'all have a good evening.
Good night, guys. Thanks for coming out again and spending part of your weekend with us. We look forward to doing this again next week. And have a lovely week. And remember, model on.
Well, guys, what Steve said, I just want to thank everyone who for coming out tonight. And like you said, spend a little of your evening with us. I hope you had a good time. We'll talk to you later. And as always, model on.